Hi, everyone. I am Tommi Vincent, host of In Her Words podcast, and today we have joining us Mori Taheripour. Mori, welcome to the In Her Words table.
Thank you, Tommi. I'm so excited to be here.
As always, I've had an opportunity to speak with you on my other podcast, Stay a While, and today we are having a conversation that is very specific about women in sports and our ability to have impact and create change. And oftentimes that change is happening and being done, and a lot of people don't know that women are behind the movement. So we want to talk about that and really lean into what you're doing right now that is impacting the world of sports. So can you talk to us about your platform and the work that you're doing?
Sure. I should probably go back a little bit and talk about sort of how I even got into this work.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think that a lot of women and men think that there's a straight path in sports, and it's the kind of thing where there's a lot of detours and you could all of a sudden fall exactly where you knew you were supposed to be but didn't know it at the time. So when I wanted to sort of pursue a career in sports, love sports, it was really focused on philanthropy in sports and sort of the social impact of sports. And I did it from sort of social marketing campaigns around communicable diseases and using athletes and celebrities to become the voice of big campaigns, education campaigns. And then that went on to actually working with players. I teach for a living. I teach negotiations for a living and at the Wharton School. And I remember, thanks to Troy Vincent, we got sort of one of those very first opportunities to work with football players, NFL players who were transitioning out of the sport. So either rookies who had the foresight to plan for that transition, or folks that have been in the league for some time and were sort of getting ready for that next chapter in their life. And so it became almost this perfect merger of the philanthropic and social impact work I wanted to do and education. And it's sort of the marriage of the two was amazing, right? So I was able to teach and do what I'm so comfortable doing, and at the same time being able to have this sort of focus on the world of sports through the eyes of athletes who I think have the greatest potential to change any community in a way that most people don't see. We see them sort of the glitz and glamour of it all. We see the entertainment on the field, but these are, and specifically NFL players, which is where I did a lot of my work, these are people that have a real commitment to the communities that they come from. Interestingly, have a real commitment to family, especially their mothers. I mean, so many of these young men had been raised by their grandmothers, their mothers, so they come from a really strong line of women, as I'm sure you know, and so the connection became really something special because you felt like you were helping. These guys were sort of used to having sort of a strong female voice in their life. And so that was easy. It was sort of the open door and the open arms because they wanted to find change. They wanted to be ready. They wanted to be prepared. And on my side of it, it was through the lens of my own life experience, through the lens of academia, through the lens of just sort of getting it, because my career up until that point had sort of given me the experience to bring some of my own life experiences, my own sort of professional career to them and help them as they plan for the next stage. So that's where it all sort of began. That's where I sort of fell in love with this work, to be honest.
Yeah.
And you know, I've sort of diverted here and there, and then I ended up doing some diversity, equity, inclusion work with the NFL, and that was amazing in its own way. It was working with women and getting them into non-traditional roles. So when we turn on the TV and we see women on the sidelines coaching and in officiating, that's a project that I've been involved with since it's sort of the first day at the NFL. So, you know, it's been a number of different things, all of which, again, I never planned for, but ended up exactly where I thought my heart was at the time. So it worked.
Yeah. So why sports?
Why sports? I never played sport. I am first generation Iranian, and when we immigrated to the U.S., it was during the hostage crisis in Iran, and my parents had sort of left everything behind to bring us to this country. And the culture in which I was raised, it was you studied, you ate, you slept, and then you studied again. And so playing sports was not really looked at as an option for me, because it's like, we left all this behind and we want you to be a doctor, we want you to be studying, sort of that's where your work had to be focused, or your attention. But I always loved sport. We moved to Brookline, Massachusetts when we had first immigrated, and I can't think of a bigger sports town. It was like the heyday of the Celtics at the time, the Larry Birds and the Robert Parishes, and sort of that heyday of basketball. And so I remember sort of these Celtics games where you'd walk in and it was like the energy in that place was so uniting. And having come from basically a coup d'etat, right, where a regime had sort of broken, and there was all this sort of political angst and division. Here was a place where it was the complete opposite. It was people were connected and around whatever fandom for that, whatever sport that was. And I was like, this is amazing. You're a little girl and you're looking up and you're like, there's love and there's excitement. So I fell in love with sports from the perspective of its unification power. And I was like, okay, one day I'm going to do something in sports. It took a long time to figure out what that was. And then I had the great privilege of ending up where I did. But it sort of sucked me up from the perspective of what has greater power to bring us together than this. And I couldn't think of anything else.
Yeah, sports, it's a really big unifier. And it's one of those things where everybody in the whole world loves, maybe everyone doesn't love sports, but there are so many people in the world that do love sports, and to your point, it's such a unifier. And so it's a space where people can thrive and come into agreement on their team and whoever they're celebrating, whoever they're rooting for.
It's absolutely true. And I also did 4 years of international sports work. So I was at USAID, U.S. Agency for International Development. Again, another one of these opportunities that sort of came my way. And that was really interesting because it brought in also the philanthropic piece. But my role was to be the person that brought sport in a much more sort of organized way to the agency, but also to raise their profile and all the things that the U.S., our country, does for countries abroad and sort of economic and socioeconomic development all around the world. And to your point, we would be in places like South America, many, many countries in Africa, and really all over the world where you thought these kids have nothing. Literally, these families have nothing. And yet they would put together what appeared to be a little soccer ball or something out of literally rags. And the joy in the lives of these kids for just those few hours that they could actually play soccer, it makes you think, first of all, people don't appreciate all that they have because look what they're doing with little or nothing.
Yeah.
But it was the sport that made them, the physical activity that made them for those few hours forget that they're in a war-torn country, that maybe they haven't really had enough food to eat, maybe whatever it is, it's like literally conflict zones. And here's like 3 hours of joy. And like, what else can do that? I don't, maybe music, maybe arts, but it's like the nonpartisan part of sports that says nothing else matters but the fact that we're here and doing this for a few hours, a few short hours. And it means everything to them.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking about how like when you can be in any country in the world, if you learn a sport, you can go to another country and not speak their language, but you can speak the language of the sport. So you can get on the field, the court, wherever it is, and you can exist without even having to say a word because you understand the language of the game.
Right.
And that's pretty remarkable that there are those types of platforms in life where that exists. Food is one of those as well.
Yep.
We've talked about that before, but it's like you have these unique opportunities in society where you're able to exist without all the other stuff. And so that is one of the things that I absolutely love about sports, because it is one of those platforms, one of those vessels where that exists.
Yeah, and it's really special in that way. I mean, to your point, and it's also, I mean, you're mother of athletes, right? And sort of you see how sport can play. Again, it's not just fandom. It's really is how it can play a really unique role in creating sort of these leadership skills, giving kids an opportunity to learn about teamwork and perseverance and all of these things that really prepare us for sort of that next stage in life. And it's something to be taken very seriously, because I think a lot of people think, oh, it's sports, it's fun, but there's another element to it that it can be really, truly life-changing. And whether it's that coach that changes your life because maybe you come from a home where you didn't have that kind of a connection with somebody, maybe it's the involvement of your parents in your life in a way that you wouldn't have had you not been an athlete, because they can come to your games, they can root for you, there's that kind of a bond. And, again, the developing world, it's a lifeline. It's a time of that gives you sort of strength and something to look forward to, and the perseverance. And I mean, it's really, I think, one of the most powerful platforms there is out there. And as we live in a very divided world that seems to get more divided by the day, and I don't even know how that's even possible. But we're divided around things like religion and politics and all the rest of it. Sport is sort of, again, this nonpartisan 3 hours of people coming together, and none of the other stuff seems to matter for those few hours. And, I sort of think that we're all so excited to have those opportunities, especially in a world that we're living in today.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. So in your journey, you talked about kind of navigating and finding your way to where you are today. Give us a word that would describe, one word that would describe your journey and where you are today.
One of my favorite Dolphin wins in the last 10 years.
Purpose. I was going to say opportunity first, because I'm so blessed and so grateful for the people in my life who presented me with opportunities that I never even imagined. I never in my head had thought, oh, I could be here doing this. I mean, even teaching. But I say purpose because, we're not going to love everything that's presented to us, but it's allowed me to find sort of what makes me happy, what makes me full, what makes my heart full, and step into it and realize this was it. This is my purpose. And it's not one thing, right? I mean, there are people that always say, like, I'm trying to find my purpose. You can't, like, your job can't be trying to find your purpose because you need purpose, right? Like, that can't be it. It's a unique combination of faith and, mindfulness, because you're so present in your life, and a commitment to something that takes you well beyond just this moment and gives you something to live for, something to aspire to, something that gives you resilience. And I think purpose is it. That's our purpose, right? And when we find it, we're whole. And I think that my journey, every step of it, even the hardest moments, have helped me actually get to the point where I think this is what it was supposed to be all along. And oh, what a joy it is when you actually realize that. And it's just fulfillment in a way that I never really knew. I didn't know what today was going to look like until I sort of opened my heart to the journey and I accepted it and find my purpose.
I really believe that if you find yourself, you find your purpose, because ultimately we all were born into the world who we were from the beginning. And then we have the responsibility as we go through life to cultivate, to develop, and to nourish those aspects of who we are. But we get so caught up in life that we start morphing into all these different things, and we're developing what they said we should be or who they said we are, and so we lose ourselves. But the moment you identify who you are empowered to walk in that thing because you know it.
Right.
Because it fulfills you and it speaks to every aspect of who you are. So when you find you find your purpose.
It's true. And I mean, I'm a big fan. I don't know if I've ever even expressed that, but what I love about your family, is there's something really special there that says there's a certain sense of authenticity that brings joy to your sort of everyday life. And that's what I've seen in you. I like the passion with which you do things. And if you really think about it, and I had to say it because of what you just said, you sort of know it and it's right, and you're not trying, in a world where everybody wants us to be something that we're not every day, the courage that it takes to actually step into that and say, this is where I'm supposed to be. It doesn't have to be judged. It doesn't have to be accepted. It's just by myself, right?
Yeah.
This is where I want to be. I'm grounded, whether it's my faith, whatever it is. And I think it's so important because it is easy to try to be all things to all people. And what does that mean? Exhaustion.
Yes. Where are you flat out?
Burnout. And nothing that says this is fulfilling me personally, because you're doing it for everybody around you. But when you actually do something that makes you joyful, then I think you can actually do more for people around you, because that's where you get your energy. That's where you get your love, your passion, your commitment. So I think all these things sort of have to coexist to give us a fulfilling life all around.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this segment, it's I'm bringing her to the table with me. And this is your opportunity to present another woman, with some verbal flowers, for you know that your career would not be where it is today without her fingerprint on your life.
Her fingerprint on my life. My mother. My mom was the strongest woman I knew. And, again, in my culture, it's the men are... People think, they run the world, right? But it's the women. It's what behind every successful man, there's a strong woman. It was definitely my mom, and she never let us forget that. But in the most humble and almost quietest of ways, right? She was just, her presence guided you, and whenever she said something to you, you sort of, it lodged itself in your mind, because she wasn't screaming it from the rooftops. She would just sort of say it to you in a conversation. And maybe like 10 years later, you're like, that's what she meant. I remember one of them was, if you have to tell people how important you are, it's probably because you're not. And, the humility that comes with that. And, I just so appreciate her. It's an emotional time. My father just passed. December 30th, so literally just passed. And my mom has dementia. So it's hard because it's almost like a person you don't know anymore. But what it reminds me of, and what I'm so grateful for, are those moments that I was able to sort of kind of extract all that knowledge and all the grace and the strength to be exactly who I am today. And there's no doubt in my mind that those seeds were planted by her. And it comes out every now and then. It shows up, and I'm so grateful to see it. But she's everything. She's everything. I have to say there's another person. I know you said her, but there's my sister, because I think she was also the recipient of all these things that are so beautiful about my mom. Talk about a strong woman. I mean, she got all that strength. But, when I look at my sister, I see my mom, and I'm thinking, that's pretty incredible that somebody can effectuate the life of people, especially her daughters, in a way that we just carry it with us, right? We carry her in our heart, and wherever you are, wherever you go, even if she's not right there telling you, you can't help but to remember, because it's like right here, and it's right here. So
yeah, I was just when I was speaking with LaTanya's story, her mother passed away, and she had some challenges growing up, and we talked about how there's people that we love, and, life takes shape the way that life takes shape. But when these people love us and we are a part of them, their DNA is a part of us, the best parts of them live through us. And we have the opportunity to continue to love them, to value them and appreciate them by being us, because they are us, and so it continues to show up in everything that we do. And so when you talk about your mom and then you talk about your sister and the strength and all of those things existing in you, of course, it's in your DNA.
Right.
And so every day you live on purpose. Your mom is showing up at this table with you right now because she is in your DNA.
Right. No, it's and you may not realize it when you're younger. I think especially girls and their moms sort of have that challenge around maybe our teenagers or whatever. We're still trying to find ourselves. Their daddy's girls usually around that age. But then when you come into your own as a woman, you are so much more appreciative of, first of all, the challenges and the struggles and all those things. And you think, wow, and she got to where she was in spite of those things, or maybe even because of those things.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we get that perspective until we're older and we're in their shoes, we're walking in their shoes. And you just want to get up and clap every day and be like, how did you do it? But I'm so glad you did. But it lifts us, like you said. It's planted. It's the seeds were there all along, and we just didn't know it. And looking back, I'm forever grateful for it. It gives you direction in a way that you didn't expect.
Mm-hmm. So, Mori, is there anything in our conversation today that we did not discuss that you would like to share?
I think that let's just going back to the women in sports piece for a minute, and just actually I want to expand it a little bit and talk about sort of diversity and inclusion, and because I think these days the same challenges exist no matter your gender, your race, what have you, anybody that feels like an other. I think there's now enough examples that are telling us that it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't even matter if that role in that job, in that company, in that organization didn't belong to somebody that looked like you or was you in the past. If there's now enough sort of evidence out there that says be the very best that you can be and show up every day that way, and have the courage to pursue things that you may never have thought were made for you, but you make it made for you, right? You show up in a way that says, I belong and I have a seat at this table and I should be here. And it's really exciting to see. I mean, there should be far greater diversity in sports, but I don't know, it just energizes me. It gives me hope. It gives me faith that there are inroads to this very industry that I absolutely love. And it's almost making me fall in love with it more, because I'm like, there's room for everybody, and it'll be better because of it. And that's really, it's a great privilege to be here in this time where we can actually see it and visualize it, and it gives people hope. Young kids who are growing up, says there's place for everybody, and it's exciting. It gives me optimism and hope. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So where can people find you?
So I'm on way too many social media channels, Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter. I also, my website at moritaheripour.com has actually really good information. I started a newsletter
I received
January
it
this year, and I hope you like it.
I do.
It is a labor of love, but I try to give as much information so that it could be not just another thing in people's inboxes, but something that hopefully gives people helpful information and guidance through my eyes and through my experiences. But yeah, and my book's on Amazon and anywhere you can buy books.
And give us the title of your book.
Bring Yourself, How to Harness the Power of Connection to Negotiate Fearlessly. So yeah, if you can't find me, you spelled my name wrong, probably. My last name wrong, probably, because it's a long one. But yeah, you can find me in all those different channels.
Well, Mori, thank you so much for coming to stay a while and joining me at the table. And you are welcome at the In Her Words table anytime.
Thank you, Tommi. I love speaking with you, and you're so welcoming. So this was yet another great conversation with you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Come on and stay a while. Tommi B. Come on and stay a while.